I'm Patty Shutter. I am the co-coordinator of Captain and part of our state leadership team. Laura?
I'm Laura Blackburn. I'm a program specialist with Placer County SELPA and a regional implementation lead for Captain.
And Amber?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amber Fitzgerald. I'm a program manager at the Mind Institute and on the state leadership team for Captain. It's nice to see everyone.
All right, so today we're going to be focusing on some of the components of high quality coaching. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the coaching cycle and the different components of the coaching cycle and how to do those and use the resources that Captain has developed to support you in implementing those coaching cycles. You're going to get some practice using the fidelity checklist as part of your observation and feedback when you're coaching, and identify all of the components of high quality coaching. And Amber's going to be sharing with us some strategies for using all of these high quality coaching tactics and strategies during e-coaching. And then we're going to end by discussing some strategies and resources to help you overcome several of the common barriers that you might be encountering when you're out there doing your professional development and coaching.
All right, so as part of high quality trainings, we always want to do a pre and a post assessment. So we're doing a poll again this time. So I'm going to launch these polls. And the first question is, the coaching cycle includes all of the following components, and just go ahead and check all that apply. Give it about 10 more seconds. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. And you can see that 100% of you said it included a pre-observation conference, 91% said training on content, and 97% said goal setting, all of which are part of the coaching cycle. All right, so then let's do the next poll, which is true or false, high quality coaching can be delivered both in person and virtually. All right, I'm gonna end this one. And this is about 90% of you said that it is true. High quality coaching can be delivered both in person and virtually. All right, so expect to see that again when we're at the end of this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the coaching cycle. So we all know when we are doing coaching, we generally start with some training on the content, right? That's the thing that we're probably going to be coaching on. So in this case, for example, when I do coaching, we do a training on one of the evidence-based practices for staff, right? So hopefully we've done a high quality training, and then they're going to start implementing that evidence-based practice. So the next step I would have with my coaching participant would be that pre-observation conference, right? And that's the conference where you get together and you are figuring out your goals and you're targeting your skills. And that would be that pre-observation conference. And then the next thing, and I'm having a hard time seeing the actual whole PowerPoint, Patty. I have to hide my bar really fast. The next thing that we're going to do is that observation, right? So we're then going to, after we've done the pre-observation conference where we've set up our goals, what are we going to look at? What behavior are we going to look at? How are we going to collect data on this? then you're going to go in and actually do the observation in a classroom, right? And in that observation, you are going to collect your data, the thing that you agreed upon to observe. And then after that, you're going to have your post-observation conference. And in the post-observation conference is where you want to talk about the data you collected, review that data with your coaching participant, track the progress that we're making on, or in this example, it would be fidelity of the implementation of the EBP. And then at the same time, at the end, you're going to do next steps and create an action plan for going forward. So what's really neat is just the first cycle is pretty much the only cycle you have a pre-observation and a post-observation that are separate, right? After that, what happens is you have your post-observation where you set new goals and you create a new plan for going forward. And that cycle continues until you reach fidelity. So it's really a cycle, and you can do these cycles, as many times as you need it until your participant reaches fidelity of implementation. So how do we know what steps they're supposed to be using for implementation, how to get to fidelity? Luckily, there are all kinds of resources in the Affirm modules, but the ones that I really refer to for implementation coaching are those step-by-step practice guide, and most importantly, that implementation checklist. It's super handy. The implementation checklist just has essentially step-by-step, briefly, each area that they're supposed to meet to get to fidelity. And what's really neat is I always use this during my coaching pre-observation and post-observation sessions to see what progress we have made and where we need to go next. Without the implementation checklist, I'd just kind of be guessing where we're going to go next, but this gives me a nice roadmap for coaching steps. Also, another great resource to use, and that'll help kind of prompt you along in the coaching process, is the coaching log. And it has a section for the pre-observation conference, the observation, and the post-observation conference. And what I think is really useful about this is how the implementation checklist kind of walks you through the steps to getting to fidelity. The coaching log, I feel like, walks you through the steps of having high quality coaching, right? So if you fill out all the boxes, you're right on your way. And it makes it really easy to know what areas you need to hit and what areas you need to connect with when you're coaching. So when we talk about a pre-observation conference, what's our implementer's role in this? So this would be, what would be the person I am coaching? What would be their role? And first, it would be state the purpose. Obviously, what are we doing here? Why are we here? And then we would work together to negotiate that coaching target. So what step are we looking to collect data on? And then we're going to agree on what that looks like. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but sometimes we can get this goal that we're trying to reach, but then we forget to say, what does that look like in the classroom? How will I know that you've reached this goal? That's kind of how I think of that. And then we're going to negotiate our data recording. So how are we collecting data on the behaviors? And then we're going to negotiate dates and times for the observation and post-observation conference. So again, it's this pre-observation conference, but we're setting ourselves up for the observation and the post-observation, so they make it easy. And then the role of the coach is very similar, except there's a few extra steps. So the coach is going to complete that coaching log in the pre-observation conference. So they're going to fill out that top section, and then they're going to guide the selection of the coaching target, right? So if you have somebody you're working with and they think our next goal is, M, but we're still at B, then we need to help guide that selection of the coaching target, help them get back to where we need to go. And then we're going to also verify our understanding through questioning, and then introduce mastery and maintenance criteria. So again, what does that look like if you've met this? What would mastery of this target skill look like? What does it look like in the classroom? What data do I need to collect to get there? How am I going to collect that data? What's my recording method? And then I'm going to summarize this whole conference. So what I've heard you say is we're going to do this and this and this when we meet up. And then we're going to negotiate our dates and times for a post-observation conference. I always think of the coach's role here is just kind of being somebody who helps guide, like a tour guide. Like we're just kind of guiding our implementer along the process and helping them if they get lost along the way. If they're not able to figure out something on their own, then it's our job to kind of help guide them along that process. So how do we do the pre-observation check-in? Any way you want that works is kind of how I think about it. We can do it in person. And I would say prior to 2 years ago, this is the majority of how we did things was in person. And I think the good thing to come out of this pandemic is now we've learned to be flexible and we can do Zoom or we can do phone. And it works just equally as well. And Amber will talk about that later on in today, but we could certainly do it in person. You can do it via Zoom or phone. I'm going to tell you that saves a whole lot of time rather than driving somewhere, but we could also do it email. But a little caveat, once you've built a relationship and have rapport with somebody, and we provide a sample later on in the participant resources of an email template for that. But I would say build a relationship first, and then you can go ahead and do that. And then usually the final step of your post-observation conference, it's not a separate and unique meeting, except for probably the first time, right? The first time when you initiate a cycle, you are going to have a pre-observation meeting. But after that, it's going to be your post-observation plus your pre-observation kind of tagged on at the end. But again, it's always good to send a reminder email to help folks. I know I appreciate reminder emails when they come to me. So a reminder about, oh, don't forget, I'll be there to observe at this time, at this day, and this is what we agreed upon. So here's kind of a blown up of our pre-observation conference coaching log. You can see it has the area of focus or concern, how you're going to collect data, so data collection method, and what that observable behavior looks like in an adult and in the student, and what our mastery criterion is. So what percentage are we looking for? How am I going to get that? And so this is kind of your blueprint for your observation, essentially. And I will say, this is not part of the strict recommendations. I will say work out with your person that you are doing coaching with. Work out with your partner how and where you're going to sit. It's the weirdest thing, and you guys know if you work in education, teachers can be very territorial of their classrooms, understandably, right? We don't want kids to be students to come over and be at our desks and stuff, but sometimes that translates into the adults as well. I had one instance one time where I really had to repair a relationship because I sat in the teacher's chair and I didn't ask. And I learned my lesson, and I will never do that again. But it really does help just to clarify that when you have on your pre-observation, where do you want me to sit? And we'll talk about a little bit more about the things you can talk about in pre-observation, but I always think, learn from my mistakes, learn from my mistakes. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to see a video of pre-observation happening in real life. Well, it was a while ago, but it's to real life people engaging in the pre-observation conference, and they're talking about the implementation of using the evidence-based practice of PECs. So you'll get to see them do this pre-observation conference.
Hey Jim, how's it going? Oh, great. Good to see you again. Yeah, good seeing you. All right. So what do you want to focus on during this coaching session?
What I'd like to work on is a functional communication system.
Okay.
A way for CJ to communicate his wants and needs.
Okay.
Using PECs.
Using PACS.
Yes.
Right. Great.
And we've had some difficulty with CJ in not being able to do that.
Okay.
And he had a day he came in, he was super hungry, didn't eat the night before, couldn't tell me. And I happened to take him out to kind of cool off. I took him right next to the cafeteria. Okay. And he began to cry, really some really tough behavior, started trying to tear me up, and we finally took him into the cafeteria. He ate a whole lot, and the behavior went away. So we're just trying to get him to the point where he can communicate with Watson.
Okay, all right, that sounds great. And so you want to target that using PECs?
Yes,
All right, and you've had some success using visual supports with them in other settings?
I have. We got him to go into places that he, the year before, would not go into: cafeteria, gym, just recently Walmart,
Using pictures. Great. So you took him to Walmart.
I showed him the Walmart store. I showed him what he was going to see when he got in, right? What he was going to see on the end of his journey. And
So you laid all that out in pictures.
yes, and his parents, nor we, none of us have been able to get him into Walmart and out without physically carrying him out.
Wow,
Until now.
that's great. Okay, perfect. Well, this sounds like a great project. I see you have the implementation checklist here. I do. So you looked this over. How far along are you in using PECs with CJ?
I think we've successfully accomplished phase 1.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is begin to work on phase 2.
Okay.
The first 4 steps of phase 2.
Okay. And that's moving into spontaneous, expanding spontaneity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So just to recap, the concern is CJ using PECs as a form of functional communication training to communicate his wants and needs. You want to increase CJ's use of PECs for communication, right? And specifically, you want to start focusing on the first 4 steps of phase 2.
Right.
All right. So when we look at those steps, the first one we're looking at is environmental setup.
Right.
So if I'm doing an observation, what do you want me looking for appropriate environmental setup?
I will use 1 picture.
Okay.
We did talk to our speech and language pathologist, and she said basically we need to make sure it's a picture he understands. Okay. And I think we have all of those. It's a literal, physical, digital picture of the noodles, okay, that he likes to eat.
And that's what you'll use.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so you want 1 picture of the noodles presented
Right.
on his textbook?
Right.
Okay, so that's environmental setup. He has that ready, all right? And then step 2, enticing communication. How will I know that you're appropriately enticing communication?
We're going to take the noodles and put them there.
Hold it in your hand. Yes, so holding the item in your hand. Okay, and then the third step is an exchange from a distance that will get progressively longer.
Right. But
At this point in time, what do you want that distance to be?
within reach, arm's length.
Within an arm's
Yes.
length. Okay. Arm's length. And then the 4th step looks like having the student pick up the packet, handing it to you independently. But what should I be looking for related to staff behavior?
About 8 to 10 seconds of silence.
Okay, so you're going to wait for a response for up to 8 to 10 seconds.
Right.
No additional prompts?
No problems.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. As far as data collection goes, how do you want me to collect data on these behaviors?
We can use the checklist,
Okay,
and you could check yes or no if
so you
do
did it
each
or
step.
not?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if step 1 was implemented correctly, I do yes. If not, there's a section for notes. We'll just check here. Okay,
Correct.
we'll do 1 through 4.
Yes.
As far as mastery criterion, what do you want me to look for?
Well, I believe I need to get all 4 steps correct each time.
Okay, so all 4 steps, yes. How many times?
4 out of 5 times.
Okay, 4 out of 5 tries. And then for maintenance criterion, how many times do you want me to observe that level before we move on?
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5,
yes.
that also. Okay, that sounds great. Perfect. When is a good date and time for the observation? We could probably do this in the morning. Okay, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Perfect. Tomorrow at 10. You want to do that here in this classroom? Okay, great. And how long do you want the observation to take place? 5 to 8 minutes long? 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, and where would you like me to sit for the observation? You could sit, if I guess, if you'd like. Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
All right, so you can see during that pre-observation conference, they hit all the nitty gritties, all the pieces of what could possibly happen in the observation that they could, right? And so I think that they hit the purpose, they hit the target, they hit what the behavior is going to look like, what the mastery criterion is, how they're collecting data, where they're going to observe, what time they're going to observe, how long they're going to observe for. So it's really, you just want to have it as descriptive as possible so that everybody knows what they're looking for, and you can fill that all in. It'll prompt you to get all those areas on that pre-observation conference coaching log. So if you're using that, it should prompt you to get all the things you're going to need for your pre-observation conference so that your observation goes smoothly. All right, so we've done the pre-observation where we figured out what we need to do for the observation. Now it's time to do the observation. So the role of our implementer is to provide a location so that you as coach you have somewhere to sit or to stand or to be so you can see the behaviors. They're going to provide the observation space. They're going to provide barrier-free access to the data collection area. You want to make sure there's a place where you can collect that data. They're going to provide and test recording materials and take sample data. They're going to prepare for your arrival. And that means if we need to talk to the students about what's going to happen, they're going to prepare for that if the students need to know that you're going to be there. And then also plan if the student ends up talking to the coach and you end up kind of interfering with what's happening by accident. So we need to have a plan for that. And then make sure you start your lesson or whatever's to be observed on time. And then try not to signal or include the coach in the lesson. So the coach is kind of a separate, just observer, not necessarily involved. And then the coach's role during observation is to arrive on the agreed upon time, nothing worse than somebody being late, to follow the agreed upon script if a student engages the coach. So like we said, have a plan, because some students like to engage folks. I did an observation a couple weeks ago for coaching, and one of the students was the coach, the implementer knew she was going to walk right up to me and she was going to ask to see my badge and ask me what I do, what my first and last name is and what I do for a living. So we had kind of a script going of what I would say so that it would fulfill her need, but not interfere with what I was doing. So just having that preparation. So also you as a coach, you don't want to signal or talk to your implementer during observation, and you're not going to participate in that lesson unless you're asked to, if you're doing any modeling, which is pretty rare in this methodology. And then you're going to collect the data. You're going to summarize the data. You're using your coaching log. You're going to complete the observation portion of that coaching log and provide a copy of the data to your implementer before the post-observation conference, right? It's always nice to give them a little heads up on what's coming in the post-observation conference and to let them think about the data before it becomes something you have to work through together. All right, so we've done a pre-observation conference. Then we observed, we sat where we were supposed to. And now this is going to be an example of watching the partners that we just saw in the observation. So they'll be looking for the implementation of PECs in this video.
CJ, look, hey, we're gonna do some work. Come to the table here. The break time isn't over. CJ, come to the table here. Good. Have a seat. Yeah.
job. Good job. There you go. You know what? I need my noodles there. Okay. Thanks, CJ. Okay. CJ. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so you can see that continues on the cycle of him requesting his noodles. And I don't know if you could all tell what that was, but I forgot to warn you ahead of time that he was asking for, he loves dry noodles. So like uncooked pasta. So that's what that crunchy noise was, because it was CJ eating the pasta. So what you saw there, and it's important to watch to see a little bit of what the lesson is, because we'll do the post observation also. But during that observation, you saw that we didn't see the other person, the coach, because they were sitting on the sidelines doing their data collection without interfering in the lesson. And again, you'd fill that all out on your coaching log. So now we've done the observation, let's do the post-observation conference. So our role is, the implementer's role is to review the data and then evaluate how they used the EBP. So a self-assessment. How did I do? How well did I do with this? And then suggest methods to enhance skills, finalize an action to improve the performance, and negotiate the date and time and all the details for the next coaching cycle. So really how I like to think of the implementer's role is really they are taking a look at themselves and doing a self-assessment of their performance. And then the coach's role is to help them with that self-reflection and self-assessment. So in the coach's role for the post-observation is to solicit that self-evaluation from the implementer. I think we've talked about this before, but this is where we're the mirror for our implementer, where we're just holding up the mirror so that they can see what their strengths and what their next steps are. And then we'll present that data for comparison and reflective conversations. So does the data agree with what the implementer thinks? And those are always some interesting conversations if they don't agree, but it's really good reflective conversation. And we talked about this last time using the questions. And then we're going to prompt the implementer to develop solutions. There aren't any solutions, and create those goals and action plan based on the data. And then we're going to provide feedback on their performance using the ORs we talked about before, those open-ended questions, affirmations, and such. And then we're going to invite discussion and sharing of ideas using those ORs. And then we're going to decide on future plans, what we're going to do in our next coaching time, and schedule that next coaching cycle and complete the coaching log for the post-observation conference. So I like to think this is where kind of the meat of coaching takes place, is in this post-observation conference, where we're really looking at the data, what the data says about the implementer's performance, and how the data can then lead us to having these reflective conversations to create new goals and action plans. And again, the post-observation conference coaching log section will guide you through it. Was mastery achieved, yes or no? And then there's some tips over here, some communication skill reminders to reflect on their words, use those open-ended questions, use leveling statements. So just kind of a visual reminder of how to communicate. All right, so let's watch our two friends again in their post-observation conference. So we're going to see how they're going to do some action planning and goal setting.
All right, well, Jim, thanks for letting me observe. I watched for about 6 minutes, and basically you implemented all 4 steps of the first 4 steps of phase 2 according to the parameters that you were looking for, correctly 100% of the time for all trials. Good. And the only deviations were you obviously were starting to push the envelope a little bit and progress a couple of the steps as far as distance, right, and things like that. So you met your mastery criteria, great. And I think based on some of the other observations, you're closing the maintenance criteria. Good, good. Well, I did notice as we started working with him this morning, he kind of he got to that point of being spontaneous a lot quicker than I thought he would, right? And so I decided to maybe move into some of the other steps, which were to move the book away. I try to move to both sides, make sure you know one favor inside. The other thing was to move myself, and I did notice that you know, he was real comfortable getting up and coming to me, and you know, even after we turned the camera off, he still wanted more, so he pulled his card again and came in and asked for more. So kind of a neat thing. I think he did well. Great. How do you want to progress, or where do you want to move to next for future observations? I think as far as, and it kind of fits the guidelines here on our text, you know, system, you know, the steps there kind of follows along. I want to add some other pictures and try to get into where he can, you know, maybe differentiate between a couple of things. Maybe an item that he wants, maybe an item that he doesn't really want, maybe needs. Okay. I'm kind of leaning toward things that he needs, and also things that I need him to be able to tell me. Okay. So for the next observation, you want to continue looking at those 4 steps with greater distance? I think so. And in addition, yes, you want to start out in the distractor icon? Yes, sir. I think so. So that's moving into phase 3. Right. Okay. Great. So do you want to we'll follow a similar data collection procedure?
I think that's great.
And, but tack on the first few steps in phase 3.
Right.
Sounds great. All right, good.
So you can see how seamlessly the post-observation conference just kind of morphs right into that pre-observation conference. So after that first cycle, they're kind of the same meeting. They don't have to happen twice. All right, so now we're going to practice a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. On that link right there is a filled out visual support implementation checklist. So what I'd like you to do is pull that up and you can see where this implementer is, this fake implementer I made up, on the visual supports checklist. And what we're going to do is have 3 people in a breakout room. Person A, person B, person C, you can decide who's what, but one of you is going to be a coach, one of you is going to be an implementer. That one's blank. And interesting. And one of you is going to be the observer. So since this is blank, what we're going to do is we're going to improvise. You're going to pick apart a step on here where you want to start. So agree with your partners that there is a part in the implementation checklist where you're going to start. So you could be at the very beginning, you could be midway through. Oh, thanks, Tara. It's not blank for her. Okay, thank you. So if it's not blank for you, go with what the one is that you have. If it is blank for you, pick one. But you're just, the real point, what we're going to try and do is you're going to try and do a post-observation conference with each other. So you're going to walk through this where one person will be the coach walking through the data and then setting up the next coaching cycle, what it'll look like in the next coaching goal for the next session. Does this make sense? You're going to have coach, an implementer, and an observer who's going to offer feedback at the end. You're going to practice doing the post-observation conference with wrapping up with creating the coaching goal for the next session. So we're going to go ahead and send you into breakout rooms, and then we'll see you in a few minutes after you get it. Everybody gets a chance to practice. Welcome back, everyone. Friendly reminder to put yourself back on mute. I know I always forget because in breakout rooms, we're chatting with each other. So friendly reminder, make yourself back on mute. Hopefully you got a chance to feel a little bit what that's like to be a coach and an implementer in a nice, safe setting. But we just want to give you a little bit of practice with this. Practice again with somebody you know and you're comfortable with. So it feels a little bit okay to you when we start the coaching process with your true implementing partner. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Amber, who's going to talk to you about e-coaching.
Great, thanks. So I know we've talked about the cycle and kind of breaking through those pieces, but a couple of things just to highlight. I feel like, the last couple of years have really created a little bit more efficiency with folks using Zoom and other video conferencing across the board with a lot more ease. Before, it used to be maybe perceived as a barrier, a little bit intimidating, but now we have most people, families, teachers, paras using Zoom or Google Meet or whatever form their district was using during COVID a lot more efficiently. And I will say for coaching, for me at least, and for those I work with, it's really created more opportunity for scheduling and allowed the coaching process and procedures to happen a little bit more efficiently and flexibly, with being able to log on for 15 minutes and do a pre-observation or touch base with someone, maybe not directly in the classroom when their kiddos are still there, but after. So we just wanted to highlight some of those differences for you to be thinking of. High quality coaching can happen in either format. So it can be live coaching in person, in a classroom, or in a meeting room, and what we're probably traditionally used to, but it also definitely can occur, the cycle can occur through virtual means as well. So the e-coaching piece. So I just want to really make sure we're clear on that. And a lot of your coaching recipients love being given the option to be able to log on, sit in their classroom and focus on a coaching conversation for 15, 20 minutes, and then be able to move on to kind of the other demands and tasks of their work. So those are both options. And one great thing to establish a great coaching relationship is to provide choice, right? Motivation. So thinking about when you're talking with your provider, teacher, implementer, finding out what they're most comfortable with for the coaching process and coaching cycle and what would best meet their needs. So that's something to think about. So I just want to highlight a couple of the differences so we can kind of be mindful of how that might look. So Laura just walked you through the whole cycle and what you typically, we saw videos that were with live coaching, so done in person, the observations are done in person. Oftentimes the post-observation will happen immediately following your observation, right? For a lot of reasons. It's fresh in your mind, you've already traveled, you've already set up that time. So oftentimes when we do live coaching, we'll ask the teacher, what is a good time for you to observe, and then how they might be able to schedule themselves so they're available to you for 15, 20 minutes following that observation just to check in. So that's often part of the scheduling. So what is nice with e-coaching is typically you can do an observation in person and then choose to do the post-observation through Zoom or even over the phone. Zoom is preferred, or some way to have video conferencing. It doesn't have to happen immediately following your observation. So a lot of times that will alleviate some of the stress and anxiety of a teacher thinking, you know, that they're divided, or yes, I can talk with you for 15 minutes, but in truth, we've all, I'm sure, witnessed it. You think they sit down to talk and they're pulled in so many different directions, even though they want to get that feedback. So sometimes just setting it up with them, like, I'm going to pop in, then after my observation, we already have a time scheduled later today. We're going to, you know, chat through Zoom. So thanks for letting me come and observe, and I'll sneak out when I'm done with my observation and you can keep teaching. Oftentimes allows them to have less worry about, you know, their time with you too. So there can be a mix between your coaching cycle too. You can do the observation directly and then meet with them for your post-observation through virtual means. You also can do classroom observations virtually as well. So if a teacher wants to record themselves, or a circle time, or a transition, or in this example was a PEX lesson, whatever their focus point for your coaching is, they can record that, obviously with permission that you would need to get in your district, and share that with you for you to take a look at before your post-observation. So that allows some flexibility as well. I'm sure how many of you have had an observation scheduled, whether it's for coaching or not, got there and the kiddo or the situation you are going there to observe didn't happen because of all the other things that happen, right? So you make the trip, you set it up, you've got the schedule, and then kiddo's not there for the PEX lesson, or the specific transition that you were looking at, evidence-based practices to support, maybe doesn't happen because of staffing. So being able to record it as a teacher, having that option, also allows the teacher some flexibility and saves you some of your travel time too. The forms you're using, just to highlight another big piece of this, in person, it's really important that the teacher has an implementation checklist for the evidence-based practice they're working on, and for you to use it and reflect in your post-observation. What's nice when you're doing it virtually is you can share your screen and have a collective focus and work on that document together. And that actually provides a really nice structure for your post-observation as well, to kind of walk through the goals. So those are kind of just highlighting some of the differences between in-person versus e-coaching, but definitely still doable. You can do the cycle regardless of the format that you choose. So as a reminder, checklists are our best friends, right? So how do we remember what we're supposed to do? We make a list and we kind of check it off. No different than when we are learning anything new or trying to remember things we've learned in the past. So I still have been doing coaching for a really long time. I still use a checklist when I pull it up when I'm doing direct coaching with folks I'm working with, is just kind of a great way for me to monitor my time and make sure I've addressed everything that we're supposed to do in a coaching cycle, and also to keep my notes and reflections and kind of follow-up items related to it. So I use it to both help remind myself of what coaching looks like when done with Fidelity, allow myself to, you know, keep track of my time help keep us on topic and focused, and also have my notes. So one document can serve multiple purposes. And then I save the coaching checklist in partnership with a coaching log for each individual I coach. So then I have a reference when I go back and can take a look at my notes for each coaching session. So with anything, right, that we're doing and learning something new, we need it to be functional and meaningful for you as a coach. So you're going to come up with your own systems, but I definitely would encourage you to think of this checklist as your own internal gauge, if you will, or mark to do your own reflections and planning ahead of time. Make it meaningful, write notes on it. It's not something just to check off and kind of move through. It really can inform your practice in the beginning when you're learning it, and then long-term as well. So it breaks it down, what we just saw in the PECS videos, into, you know, your pre-conference, your observation, and then your post-observation, which are really clear parts of that coaching cycle. Laura mentioned you might not have a pre-observation conference every time. If you and a teacher are working on a specific topic and focus and have some larger goals, you might do a pre-observation meeting and then have a couple observations and post-observations reflections with the teacher. So you might, that cycle might look a little bit differently depending on where you are with the teacher. Also, email is a great way to touch base with the teacher. Hey, I just want to remind you, this was our focus, visual supports. You wanted to work on implementing PECS with this kiddo. I'm coming to observe for just 20 minutes today. I'm going to sit in the back of the room. I know I'm not going to interrupt your instruction, and then you and I will debrief after. So an email is a great way to do a check-in and set expectations too before a coaching visit, especially if you wear multiple hats in your district or agency. It's really important to remind the teacher or provider why you're there, if it's for coaching specifically versus helping with an IEP or writing a behavior plan, if you will. So it's really important for them to be reminded of the purpose of the coaching visit. So you're going to want to have this out, use this as a tool as you go through coaching. And we're going to watch a video in a second, and I want you to pay, you can go to the next slide, Patty. I just wanted to frame this a little bit for you. It's an example of a coach doing part of this video is just a segment of a coaching cycle. So it's done through e-coaching. And you're going to see part of the post-observation conference with the teacher. So they're over Zoom. The coach is sharing the district's implementation checklist, and they're working through that checklist together to identify what's in place in the classroom. And it's based on direct observations, and this coach has a long history supporting this teacher. And then what you don't see is them setting the goals after that reflection. But this is just another example of what a post observation conference can look like. And I'd like you to pay attention to the language that is used between the coach and the teacher as they're working through the checklist. And I'd like to get your thoughts about that after we watch the video. So it's about 8 minutes. So maybe jot down on a paper some of the questions you hear the coach say, some of the sentence starters, because I think those are good things for us to be aware of when we're coaching our teachers. You know what, Patty, I can't hear it. Can anybody else hear it? I think because you muted yourself, Patty, I think you can't be muted if you're sharing your audio. Let's see if that's it. There you go.
Okay, hi Angelica. Hey Becky. So we are working through the reinforcement checklist. Let's take a look at what your goals were from last time. Okay. So when we met last, it looked like you had a goal for 1.3, provide a variety of reinforcers. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you had in mind specifically for that?
I think that one was, I wanted to include more choices during my movement video time, because before what I was doing was just kind of presenting the video to the kids during that time, but now I use it as an opportunity for reinforcement, or I wanted to use it as an opportunity for reinforcement instead. So now it's more of like choices for the kids. So there's 3 videos, and one kiddo is able to pick which video he wants to watch, and then the whole class watches it.
Okay, great. How do you feel like that's been going? Do you feel like it's something that's going well and you want to mark it off?
Yeah, you know, I actually think it's been a great addition, because now the kids are kind of like excited for the video, and I noticed that whoever gets to pick the video, they're extra excited. And overall, there's just so many more choices and variety of videos that are like available for the kids. So I think that's going really well. And like sometimes we use it as reinforcement even during our lessons. So we say, oh, you did such a great job. Like we're gonna let you pick the video afterwards. And I know Guidance has been really excited for it, and Bilal has been really excited for it as well. So I really love it. It's something that I want to continue doing, and then just, you know, adding new videos and just to keep it fresh and for the kids to keep their interest. But so far it's been great.
Good. Okay, so let's move down to where it says positive reinforcement.
Mhm.
So maintain positive reinforcement to corrective feedback with a 5-to-1 ratio. So in general, providing more positive than corrective statements. How do you feel like you and your staff are doing with that?
I think it's always a good reminder. It's a good thing to just remind us about. I want to say that overall, we do try to keep really positive, we try to keep it more positive than just corrective feedback. And I think we do a pretty good job during like fine motor activities, during art. We're constantly giving positive reinforcement to the kids and to the parents. I think maybe where we could do a better job is during our WIP lessons, because sometimes it's harder for the kids to be working at that time since it's not hands-on. And I think at that point we probably give a lot more corrective feedback. And I don't think we're keeping the 5-to-1 ratio during like WIP lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that you feel like you want to work on with your team?
Yeah, I think that would be something that'd be really beneficial for us to be aware of and try to work towards.
Okay, we'll go and leave that one blank for right now. In general, I think you guys do a fantastic job of providing a lot of positive praise in general. But yeah, always a good thing to be aware of and conscious of.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, deliver reinforcement within 3 seconds of correct responding.
I would say that we do a very good job at that one.
Yes, I would agree. You guys are very on top of it with that. And I think it helps that you're very aware of what you're reinforcing, not just you, but your paras, right? So you have the specific target behavior or skill in mind that you know that you're providing that reinforcement for, or that you are prompting the parents to deliver the reinforcement for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think they, especially the parents, they do such a great job at giving specific reinforcement.
Yeah. Okay, the next one, deliver reinforcement with appropriate rate or frequency.
I would say we do. I think we're really aware of, or I think we're moving towards like becoming really aware of each student's specific needs. So some kids need a little bit more reinforcement at a quicker rate, and then some kids can go a little bit longer without it. So that's something that we've been talking about a lot, especially as we moved from our 3-piece token boards to our 5-piece token boards, just kind of talking about which kids, you know, might benefit from the 5-piece and which kids, like maybe if they're having a harder day, like we can just do like the 3-piece just so that they like have more success and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're doing good. So.
Good. I agree. I think it's been great to see over distance learning too, you and your staff really, and I know we've talked about this, but being able to individualize those token boards and reinforcement systems for the kids. So it's, you know, it's great to see the individualization of, okay, this kid is just earning 1 token versus this kid is earning 5. And you can see that you communicate that well with your staff too, because they've been working hard to all be on the same page.
Yeah, definitely.
Monitor amount, consistency, and magnitude of reinforcement.
I would say, I mean, the nice thing about distance learning is that during the WIP lessons, I am able to monitor. So I think I do a pretty good job at monitoring how the paras give reinforcement, and then just talking about it, like the same thing, like if like they need to be working for 3 tokens that day or 5 tokens, if I see that maybe they're not doing the thing to like make the kid like the most successful, then we talk about it afterwards. And that's something also we're working on the consistency part, because obviously Lupita and Carmen are not able to talk to each other. So if Guidance is having a harder day and who's only working for like 3 tokens, that's something that I try to communicate with the other para before they start working with them. So yeah, so it's been something I've been trying to work on during distance learning.
Yeah, and you could tell, I think it's, we've talked about it in our conversations too, but that consistency piece just between you and your staff when they're working with the kids, it's been good to see how that's just improved over the year, especially since it's your first year working with those two paras in general, right? Like you have to kind of build that rapport, and then the consistency piece on top of that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're seeing improvement.
Yeah. And then pair all tangible reinforcers with specific descriptive praise.
Again, I think during fine motor, art times are really great at being very specific. I mean, like, good job like gluing, good job cutting, good job holding the paper. Like, we're very specific, I think. I think maybe, now that I think about it, during WIP lessons, we tend to give more like generic praise. So like, good job, great job, instead of like saying like, good job, tough.
Okay, so that gives you a good sense of how they were moving through each of the items on the checklist, hopefully. And just, I didn't quite clarify a little bit, but you can obviously pick up from this was happening during distance learning when the teachers were teaching completely remotely. And one thing, just as a side, not super important, but it made me smile when they shared this with me. They decided instead of marking met or not met, they moved to the emoji faces because it was all digital. So they did a completed smiley face for the items that they had met fidelity with. I just thought that was, little things, right? Especially when all these teachers moved to distance learning, that they adjusted a little bit. So just real quick, I'm going to pass it over to Patty and want to be mindful of time, but I would love in chat, or if someone wants to just unmute and share what's something you noticed in the coaching delivery and structure of the coaching that stood out to you. Okay, so some open-ended questions. Yeah, so for each of the items, she starts with, how do you feel like that's going? How do you see it? Also, Robin said the opportunity for self-reflection, which is really huge, right? The balance of talking in this, what did you notice about the balance of who was spending most of the time talking? Was it really coach directed and led and dominated, or did you feel like there was a balance between both partners in the process?
Dog is in the background, I'm sorry.
That did sound like an animal, Patty. So you could just do thumbs up or down. Did you feel like it was an even balance between the coach and the receiving partner, or did you like yes or no? I suppose I can't ask you two different. I see some head nods. Okay. Yeah, so opportunity, the open-ended questions allowed the teacher to self-reflect, and then the coach was able to follow up, add some clarifying information or content from a direct observation to support that, and kind of provide some specific examples of what that looked like within the classroom. So just a quick snippet of what a post-observation could look like if you're doing it virtually. And now I'm going to turn it over to Patty to kind of talk through some more of the specifics when we think about potential barriers and what are some things we can do as coaches.
Right. Thanks, Amber and Laura. Great examples of the coaching cycle. And I think some additional great examples of those ORs and communication strategies that we talked about in the last professional learning network. So we're going to wrap up by talking about some of the potential barriers to coaching and some strategies and methods for overcoming them. And those of you who are new haven't yet experienced this, but will very soon. And those of you who have been around for a while know that every year we do a survey of all of you to find out what's going well and what are the things that you're finding to be challenging. And so these barriers to coaching are things that you guys have actually reported back to us. And as a leadership team, you know, we really want to figure out resources, strategies, ways of helping you to be able to do this cadre work better. And so a lot of these things have been kind of an iterative development, you giving us feedback, us developing something, you field testing it, and giving us feedback about what's working and what's not. So these are the top 5 barriers that you all have, as cadre, have reported back to us, interfere or make it a challenge for you to do effective coaching. And the first one is administrative support. The second one, very related, is time to be able to dedicate to doing the training and coaching activities. The third one is your own feeling of confidence and competence with the coaching skills. And then the fourth is dealing with resistant implementers or teachers, paraeducators who maybe aren't really bought into the evidence-based practices or the coaching process and model. Do those sound like some of the things you guys have been encountering and experiencing? Yeah, okay. So let me walk through then some of the strategies and resources for each of these. And the first one is what we'd consider to be an antecedent-based intervention for the adults that you're working with, not the students themselves, but the adults that you're working with in this coaching relationship. And it's our 3-way coaching agreement. And this is available on the Captain website. You can also adapt and develop it, you know, to meet your specific needs, but this is a great you know, sort of resource for you to look at. And what this 3-way agreement does is it outlines and clarifies the roles and expectations of the 3 people who are really involved in the coaching relationship. The first page outlines what the coach, you guys as cadre, agrees to do. And it dispels some of maybe the myths or fears that teachers might have about coaching, i.e., this is not evaluative. And the information that is obtained through this coaching interaction isn't going to be shared with a supervisor. It isn't going to be used as part of your evaluation. It's kept confidential between the coach and the implementer. So this really outlines and clarifies what the role of the coach is. It gives you an opportunity to talk through what it is that you're going to be doing. You know, and it can be, like I said, adapted based on the unique situation or circumstance that you're in with a person that you're coaching or mentoring. Page 2 is what the coaching recipient agrees to do. So whether it's a paraeducator, teacher, a DIS provider, whoever it is that you're going to be providing coaching to, this outlines their roles and responsibilities. And this can be, you know, sort of used as like your norms or your agreements. If ever you're in a situation where, you know, they say, well, you know, you didn't do this, or I wasn't aware that this was going to be an expectation. You have this document that you can go back to and say, you know, let's go through and review. And if we need to, revise the coaching agreements that we made in the beginning to make sure that they're really a comfortable fit for everyone involved. Then the third page, probably the most important, is the administrator page. And so this outlines what they agree to do and helps them to be able to understand what a coaching relationship is and is not. And this is where we get at that all important time is being provided to allow for the coaching cycles to happen. So if you're bumping up against a time barrier and there's nothing that the teacher can do about it, then that might mean that you need to have a conversation with the administrator and go back to these agreements and say, here's what we're encountering. This was what was agreed to in order to help this coaching relationship or this coaching process work. We're encountering some barriers. Let's do some brainstorming or some troubleshooting around how to overcome these barriers. It may be that they say to you, gosh, there's really nothing right now we can do. I think we're all experiencing some of those barriers that seem in some ways right now, at least temporarily, kind of insurmountable. And all that means is that maybe this is not the best time to do coaching with that particular recipient, because adding that coaching on top of everything else that's going on, the context may just not be a good fit right now. And that's okay. You agree to revisit it when circumstances or contexts do get a little bit better. But a lot of times, the administrators can come up with creative ways of being able to put in place, some of these supports so that the coaching relationship can continue and be more productive. So we have to give them that opportunity to come up with those strategies. So this just sort of lays the groundwork and lays the foundation for establishing those roles and those relationships within the coaching process proactively, and gives you a resource to go back to when you might need to have some of those troubleshooting or problem solving conversations. We also have a process, and it's one of your requirements as a Cadre member, to meet with the person that nominated you for captain. Okay. And in the case of our school's Cadre, that's your SELPA directors. They have assumed the role in this relationship with captain of selecting, supporting, and deploying Cadre into the field to do this work. And they know what your requirements are. And they know what it is that they have signed you up to do whenever they put your name in on an annual basis to us. So they do have some responsibility in terms of figuring out support for you. And I know we have a lot of Cadre that work for a district within a SELPA, and the SELPA director is the one that's nominated you. But this form and your annual check-in with that SELPA director provides an opportunity for you to communicate what's working well and what maybe is a barrier or challenges that you're having, so that SELPA director could talk to and make arrangements within your district with those administrators or those people who are responsible for allocating or protecting your time for certain things. This will open the dialogue for them to be able to have those communications as well. Okay, so it's a good time of year to be thinking about scheduling this annual meeting with your SELPA director, the end of the year check-in, and this form, which is available on the captain website, can help to guide you through that conversation with them. All right, so let's move on to coaching skills. So hopefully this professional learning network has given you some additional opportunities for some practice using the coaching methods, the communication strategies, understanding a little bit more about the coaching cycles. But there are some additional things that you can do to help build your coaching skills and build your confidence and competence with doing coaching in evidence-based practices for autism. The National Professional Development Center for Autism has a coaching manual and coaching resources, including the videos, some of them that we showed you during this particular session, that can demonstrate effective coaching practices and processes. So that's a resource. There's a link on the captain website to the manual. And this really does outline our method and our model within captain for coaching. There's also interactive coaching modules on the NERN website. And we can probably go ahead and copy this for you in the chat if you want to take a look, but you guys all have access to this PowerPoint in the materials as well. So you can check this out at a later time, but these are interactive. They provide you with opportunities to preview and practice some of the strategies. They're fairly short, but another way for you to enhance your skills and understanding and some of the components of effective coaching in practice is using these NERN modules on coaching. You also have resources within the Captain Network itself. Other Cadre that have maybe a little bit more experience doing this work, who work within your district or SELPA, are a great resource to go to, as well as your regional implementation leads. through our work with the statewide system of support and our grant from CDE, we've now been able to identify a regional implementation lead for each of our captain regions. And all of the folks listed here, whom I'm sure you've been getting emails from, they're the ones who coordinate your regional meetings in a lot of cases. These guys are experts in this and are there to support you and model for you, practice with you, hook you up with a more seasoned cadre if that's what you're feeling like you need. They can set up an observation for you to see someone else doing the thing that you have questions about, if that's a helpful resource for you. But just know that these professionals, these team members are there for you to be able to support you in feeling comfortable and confident as you acquire these new skills as a trainer and coach through Captain. So reach out, don't be afraid to reach out. And then there's, of course, the barrier of the resistant implementer. So again, we want to encourage you guys, especially when you're first starting out in this role, to really pick people as your first coaching recipients who are going to be easy to coach. The champions, the people who are going to be receptive, people you already have a rapport and a relationship with, and explain to them, hey, I'm learning this new set of skills and I want to practice with a safe partner. Would you be willing to allow me to provide you with some implementation coaching? It'll be a win-win. I'll learn better coaching skills. You'll have some great reflection on your practices. But pick the people that are going to be most receptive and maybe the high achievers and high performers already, because that's going to give you an opportunity to practice in a positive circumstance. And we use this analogy, asphalt, gravel, mud, where are you going to get traction faster? And the obvious answer is on the asphalt. So pick an asphalt teacher, one that is, already, raring to go and really willing. Don't be afraid to work with a teacher who maybe is a little bit gravelly and takes a little while to get going. They're going to give you good practice in using these skills. But we all know what happens when you're in the mud, right? You're spinning your wheels, you're running out of gas, and you're not getting anywhere. A lot of times when you're trying to do coaching with this type of situation and this type of context, you're not going to be able to coach your way out of the mud. It's probably more than that that's going on. So think about, especially as you're learning, trying to really partner with and work with and learn coaching with somebody who is a little bit more eager and receptive to the coaching process. Change theory indicates that mud often becomes gravel and gravel often becomes asphalt as this process goes on, because teachers are going to talk. And the teacher who receives your coaching is going to go, oh my God, that was the most amazing experience. I recommend it to anybody. And then the gravel is going to go, well, I want some. And then the gravel is going to be asphalt. And then pretty soon those mud people are going to go, well, how come everybody else is getting this thing that I'm not getting? And so you'll see that progress if you just give it some time. But don't feel like you have to start with the teachers who are really the least receptive. And then we, I think it was last year at our summit, introduced you to a strategy to help kind of figure out what the function of resistance is. It was the COM-B strategy. So really thinking about where's the resistance coming from this person? Is it capability, opportunity, or motivation? Sort of like doing a functional analysis on your coaching recipient when they're being resistant. Which of these things is it? Or maybe it's a combination of a couple of them. But once you sort of pin down if it's capability, opportunity, or motivation, that can then lead you to a coaching strategy that might then be a match to whatever the function of their resistance is. And we have this resource available in the materials for this session. The training workshop on COM-B and on dealing with resistance is also available through video on the Captain website. So if you weren't a Cadre member, or if you want to go back and refresh a little bit on that, that is available on the Captain website. And then finally, remember to use those ORs, those effective communication strategies. And we've just provided here an example of some of the wording or phrasing that you may want to think about using whenever you're encountering resistance across those different ORS strategies. This takes practice, and it takes time to really sort of hone your skills in being able to use those ORS. But if you know that you're dealing with someone who might be a little bit resistant, even having a couple little scripts or key phrases or questions that you want to use with them can really be helpful. And then final resource, several years ago now, we had an amazing workshop at one of our summits by Sarah Owens. She is an expert in motivational interviewing, and we recorded it. And so that's also available if you want to learn more about the motivational interviewing strategies and techniques. They're really highly effective when you're dealing with resistance, and the ORs are based on them. So this will take you a little bit more in depth with the motivational interviewing techniques, and that's available on the Captain YouTube channel. And you guys can view that and check that out for free.
All right, phew. Let's get to the polls. Thanks everybody for sticking with us. I am going to relaunch our first question, which was the coaching cycle includes all of the following components. Check all that apply. So does it involve pre-observation conference, delivery of the evaluation report, goal setting, or training on content? Give it about 10 more seconds. All right. So let's see. 100% of you said it involves a pre-observation conference. Correct. 100% of you said it involves goal setting. Correct. And 96% of you said it involves training on content. Also correct. It does not involve the delivery of the evaluation report because remember, this is a non-evaluative process. So let me do the last poll. Get everyone out of here. So true or false, high quality coaching can be delivered both in person and virtually. Almost everybody. There we go. So correct, the answer is true. We can do high quality coaching with both in-person and e-coaching. All right. Patty, do you want to wind us up or do you want me to?
You can.
All right. Thank you everybody for sticking with us. And if you've been with us for the 3 PLNs, it was so much fun to have you. I hope that you learned a little something or took something that you can implement in your own careers and coaching relationships that you have. But we hope that this has been beneficial to you. And we look forward to working with you all more in the future. So thank you, everybody.